Welcome back to part 2 of this Scriptcase property management creation video. My name is Jamie Oates and I'm your host during this training. So today we are having a look at how we can create a property management platform where we can store properties, add them and so forth. So we had just finished off where we had created this grid you are currently seeing, and there's been no further changes on this since the last video. So of course we will continue from where we had left off. So previous to this we had created a form already, so that would be this form where we have the images to upload for the property management system. We had also begun creating our property list where we have a grid where we can view all of the properties and manage them also from here. And we're now creating the property view and the property images grid, which are these two, which we're currently working on now. So we have here our properties displayed, and what we want to do is actually display one property at a time, as well as then the images below each one. So here we still have some changes to make, as well as here for the images, which running that we want to import into the other application, which we had just seen, and see the relevant property images there. Okay, so now here within the properties grid, if I come back here, let's have a quick look at that again. We have here the report of properties, so we want to remove here the name and display maybe the property name. Remove here the date, display the images below this, as well as only display one property at a time. But before we do that, let's continue here with the property images. So we have this currently displayed. As this was a little easy, we started with this, and this is then needed for the next application. So let's continue with this. We just added our images and we just got them displayed. So let's first of all change here so we have them all displayed the same. So here we can maintain the aspect ratio again. We'll untick that or run that, and now all of our images are displayed correctly within our grid application, within the dimensions we have defined. Okay, so because we're importing this, we don't really have to worry much about the buttons, the title and everything in this application. So we can leave them as they are, but what we will do is come back here to the settings, and we're going to change that here to 2 columns. So now what we're going to do is place the images next to each other. Okay, so now we have them displayed like so. Now we could of course add more columns if we wanted to and adjust this further, but for the time being let's leave that and see how that's going to look like when we add that here into our properties view here. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a nested grid, and here within the links folder I can specify a new link, and I will call this again extra image and click the create button. So here I will now select the grid property images which we had just created and set up, select next, and it's asking me now for the property ID which we had defined within that application. I'll click confirm, I will save that. I don't need to display the header, the sequential or total, so I will remove those, and then I can just go ahead and click the run. So now when I view the property, we now have the extra images displayed here for each property. Okay, so now we can then define how we want this information displayed further. For instance, here now back in Scriptcase for the grid view, let's close the images, we don't need that no more. So here we can make further changes where we can align the text, or we can change the label and so forth. So here I'll come first of all to layout and then blocks, and we could now create a new block because this is a slide grid, and here I'm going to hide the title and come back here to edit fields, and now this extra image I'm going to drag into this new block and run that again, and now this no longer has titles for this section. So the top section still does. We could leave them there, we could remove them however we please, or we can make further adjustments here. So let's go ahead and create another block. I'll call this one block 0. And I'm going to drag that to the top here. Again, there I will not display the label. And I want no on all of these. And then come back here to the edit fields. And there I'm going to drag the images field into that and click run again. And now we have our main image displayed at the top here. So of course it's quite small now. So I'm going to go ahead here to the images field and let's adjust that to say a much larger image so we can see it in all its glory. And like so 460, 820. I have a nice big image up here. I can really see the property. I can see the details, and then I can see some further images here. Of course, I can change this again. So let's come back here to the images grid and change this to actually be in settings. And we're going to apply 3 columns instead. So I'll just generate that application. And then I can close that again. And then here now, within the properties, let's run that. We will now have 3 properties next to each other. So if we add 6 images to each property, it should go quite nicely. And again, we could adjust this even further. So the image, let's remove the maintain aspect ratio. Let's increase the size of that depending on the size of the application you want to have here. So we could say here now, settings, and let's limit the size of this. In grid modules, the grid, we could limit the width of this, say to 950 pixels. And then we have our grid remaining at this size all the time. We could then increase the size of this header image here, and let's say 1200 on the width, nice and wide. And then we can also center that. And run it again, and now the image will be displayed in the center of this. Okay, so we still have then the issue of displaying 1 property here. Okay, so now let's come back here, and now we want to apply a custom SQL here again. And here again we will be saying a where statement. We'll come in here. Here I will now say where, and I believe it's ID again, where ID equals the property ID. Okay, now when I run that, now this will also ask me for the location. The ID equals property ID, and I need to define that here also in the events. And again, I'm using here field variable, so I need to change that to a global variable, and then I can run that and it should be now corrected. So now I have the variable being requested, and I can now view my property. Okay, so now we want to further change in here. We have the title, so let's come here to the layout, and here in the header footer I will change here, remove the date. And if you remember, we applied some bootstrap previously, so let's do that again. So I come here on header, I'll come here to my code snippets, and I'll apply my variable again. So here I have my var head, so I'll copy that, ready for my header again. I'll apply bootstrap and the buttons. So I'll come now to my header and footer. I can now apply the variable in here, and then also property, and let's apply another variable, Okay, so then if I save that, okay, so I now run that application, and now enter the property ID. I'm now being requested the title, which is the new variable we have defined. So there we now want to place this 12th floor apartment. We want to place that in here also, and adjust the toolbar here. So let's come back here to the toolbar, and now I'm going to remove the export options. I'll drag them over here and move the search over to the other side. And then if I run that now again, we'll see that this is a little cleaner. Okay, so we now have this a little tidier than previous. The quick search is actually not going to be needed because it's only on property view, so we could add that separately if we wanted to. Okay, so now if I remove that now and I run the grid application again, we now no longer have the search up here, but we have the buttons available to export. Sorting is not needed, so let's remove that also. Group by will not be needed, so we can save that now. Now when I run, my toolbar is now going to be much cleaner. Okay, so now I only have export options here now, save and exit. Now we still need to add the title here. So coming back into Scriptcase, if I then come here to the events and then OnScript init. So now in the OnScript init, if I come here, I'm going to use one of the examples and I will select some fields. And now here I'm going to specify first of all the variable for our title, and I will remove the fields I'm not going to use, and then I will just copy this variable around. And here we're going to use the var property ID, and I'm going to select from the properties table where the ID equals this ID, and I'm going to take the title and I'm going to give it this new variable. So now if I run the grid, still being requested the var title, and now it's actually being inserted here. Okay, so now within the application and global variables, I will switch off that the var title as an out, run this again, and now I am only requested the var property ID. My title is still completed. Okay, so I still want to update here the availability, so come back here to Scriptcase and the OnRecord event. Here I will use one of my snippets, and here, for instance, on properties on record, I will use this again. So we're again changing and now in the OnRecord event, I will again use one of my code snippets, and here I will use the grid properties on record, and here now I'm changing the capacity, so it's more than 5. We're going to do some text styling, change the color, and for the view we're not going to use this field, so I'm going to remove this. And for the bootstrap field for available, we have here available yes or no. We're displaying bootstrap badge, so we already have bootstrap here in the on header. So now if I run this again, we now have some styling applied within our application. Okay, so our view is now good. We can now view the property. Let's now go ahead and link that now to the grid properties. So here we still have our list, and we want to link it now here to the view. So I'm going to now, within the grid properties application, I'm going to apply an application link, create a new link, and here field link, because I'm targeting the view field, And I will then also select the view field here, click next, and now here I want to open the grid properties view, and next. Now the var title, there's no value, and the property ID is the ID of this grid that we currently have, so I'll confirm. I want to open the same window, click save, and now I can run my properties grid. And now when I select a property, I will view that property information here. Okay, so there are some changes here that we still want to apply now within our grid property images in here. I want to change the report that's displayed here. So when we select a property, I come back, use the back button. If we select a property that has no images, then it actually displays a different message. So here within the property images, the SQL, for no records message, I'm going to enable user customized message. And here I'm going to have or indicate that no property images have been added yet. So no extra. No extra property images have been added yet. So now if I run this, and if I select a property, say that has no images, then we have a different message here. And now within the properties here, so when I select one of these properties that has no images, we have a different message here displayed. Okay, so our properties, view and grid and images are all ready. So I'm going to go ahead and close all of these. And let's make our locations. So this one's going to be really quick. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use one of the tools, and I'm going to create sorry, not tools, application. And here I want to batch applications. So I'm going to create multiple applications at once. And I'll create the locations, the form and the grid in one go. Select next. I'll leave their default names and their description. And I will generate the source and edit also. Okay, so now the form is opening so that I can edit them straight away. And you'll see that they're also located within my locations folder here. So now I have a very standard grid where I can view all of the locations, and a basic form so I can add and modify the locations that are there. So I'm just going to make some quick changes here. So for the form, for instance, I'm going to change from a single record, because it's just one entry. I'm going to change this to an editable grid. So when I run this, I can now edit multiple locations at once. I will just quickly adjust the toolbar also. Move the buttons over here to the right. And we can then also just remove the date from the header. And we can just leave it like that. So now when I run the grid app, well, the form application, I have no title, the toolbar is nice, and I have my form. So I will just quickly also adjust the width here, and I'll apply an 850 pixels. If I run that now, these size will be slightly reduced. Of course, we can actually reduce the size of this or add extra fields, or maybe even let's change the blocks to display the titles above. And yeah, like it says, the orientation for single record. So because we have it now, we don't get that. But I will remove here the ID field. We don't need that. And now it's a slightly easier form to use. Okay, so now with the grid application, when I run this, notice that we already have the add new here. The two of these are already linked together. Okay, so this is linked with the grid location. So when I run the grid locations, this grid, I already have the add new form button here. I can add it, and I also have the edit available, so I can edit the individual field. Okay, so for the edit field, I actually want to change this so that if I'm going to edit this, then it opens in a modal window. So what I can do is I can then come here to application and links, come here to properties, and select then modal and save. And then now when I run this, I edit, I have this open in a modal window. So now a smaller width here would be much better. So let's go ahead and apply that. Form locations, settings, and I'm going to set this to 100%. Let's set it to 98%. So now when I run the form, it's full width. And then within the modal window, when I click edit, it looks like so. Okay, so we don't actually need the header here either. So let's go ahead and remove that. Locations, layout, header and footer, and we can disable the header. So next time the header will not be displayed either. And the rest of this, we can leave this as it is for now. There's nothing special about the locations grid. So let's go ahead and jump to the next, which is then the reservations. So now within the reservations, I'm going to go ahead and run the application and batch applications again. And here I will select the rentals table that we have here. And we're going to go ahead and click the next button. Now I'll leave the default names. Again, I will generate the source and to edit. Now the forms will be generated and then linked together straight away, so that then I don't have to create that connection between the form and the grid. So okay, so now when I run the rentals grid, I have a very basic grid here now. There's quite a few changes I want to make here. And then we also have the form rentals. So when I run that, we have the form for rentals. So let's start with the rentals form, so we can clean this up. And let's first adjust there the toolbar, move the buttons over. There will be no need for a search here, so I will remove that. For the edit fields, I'm going to go ahead and make some changes here to the fields. So the status, I will leave the status up top here. I will remove the ID. The mount, I will leave that next to the property ID, and I will hide the week number. Okay, so now when I run the form application, I'm now looking at this. Okay, so now let's go ahead and adjust these fields some more. For the property, we need to make a selection here. So when I come to the property field, I'll select to use a select field. And for the lookup settings here, I will create a select. Now properties, the title, so yes, select the connection, and I will use a title field. So now when I run this, I now have a select for the properties, and instead of having a selection available, I have a blank here so that I can have a blank selection. Okay, so now for the amount, we come down here, I want to use the currency symbol, and I could change here the decimal precision, as well as show a calculator if I wanted, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then click the run again. Let's have a look. Okay, so we now have a calculator next to the amount, and I have a calendar for both of these fields. So the status, I want to change this. So at the moment this is a text field, so I want to change this to a radio field, and here I'm going to use a manual lookup. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a separate label. I'll add that in there. So now I have a label and a value. And do the same again. And also then for the booked option. Okay, so now I have available, rented, or booked. So there's no other entries that can be added there. And if I then run that, I now have a radio selection. So now I want them displayed next to each other. So back here in Scriptcase, below the lookup set, well, above the lookup settings, I have the option here to use switch. So I will select that and run again. And now they're going to look a little nicer. And now here I'm going to apply the columns, 3 columns, and run again. And now I have the fields displayed next to each other and with the switch option, which looks a lot nicer than previously. And that looks a lot nicer already. Okay, so we can adjust the size of the form. Let's go ahead again here. It's like 650 this time. It's quite a small form. And the header, then also we can remove the title. So these are all things that we did previously on all the other applications. So I will just remove the date. And now we could add the logo there if we wanted to. I think it's just for a basic form, it's fine. So let's just leave it like that for the time being. And then we come back to our grid rentals. And now we want to change these fields here and make quite a few adjustments here. So we have here the property ID displayed, the amount. So here we want to hide the ID, display the property, and add maybe some status information in here as well, which we should have here available. So here we have the status, and I will hide the week number. Okay, and the ID. Okay, so now when I save, I will now go ahead and make some changes in the events. Let's have a look at the grid first. Okay, so we have here now the status. So I want to change the status. So on record, I have here a macro that a snippet that I saved. And here for the grid rentals, we have here OnRecord Events. So here I'm defining, well here I'm first of all using the SC macro, so Scriptcase macro field color for status. So I have here the status field and also the property ID. Okay, so here I'm changing the color of this field status and the property ID field using the Scriptcase macro. And above that here, I'm using a switch where I'm saying if it's available, if it's rent, let's change that to rented, and then if it's booked, orange, logic blue, orange, or green, and then it's going to change the field status where I'm displaying here a bootstrap badge. So if I now run that within the grid application, I still need to add bootstrap. So let's go ahead and on the onHeader event, if I come here, I again have a snippet prepared for the onHeader. So if I add that, I can now run this and my status will have a nice bootstrap indicator. Now the property, we still need to apply that. So let's change this property ID field. And here I'm going to apply a lookup method, automatic, and for the properties table. And there we want the title to be displayed. Select the connection and then run that again. And now the property title will be displayed. And then we can make any further adjustments to this application. See here I'm using reserved instead of rented. So that will need to be updated. So if I then come into the form so that everything retains the same variables, I can then also just come in here now quickly and adjust my database that I have prepared. Okay, so now for the grid application, I actually want to go ahead and display some icons up here as we did for the properties grid. So here for the layout, in the header and footer, I will come here and apply a different header and apply the variable we had used previously. Now I had removed that on the onHeader, so I'm just going to come in here, and what I will do is I'll just remove this and again apply the snippet. Once you find it, of course. Then run that again, and now I will have the icon displayed here. Of course I can then change that here, say to a map pin, and I will have the icon changed, and then we may want to have a different title there also. For rentals, rental properties, so I change this to rentals. I have the rentals here displayed. Okay, so we may now want to start then with our next applications, which are then the bookings applications. So for bookings, we again want to create two applications. Now I'm going to go ahead and again use the application and batch application. Error, remove the previous. Okay, so now for the bookings, we want to this time create individual applications. So I'm going to create a new application, and I'm going to select a grid. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to place in here a custom SQL statement. So here I'll zoom in a little. Now here I'm going to select the tables that I want to be using here. So here I'm saying I need to change the name on all of these. Rentals, sorry, this is actually the bookings table. So if I select here, bookings, and then I can actually apply that here everywhere. And here I'm targeting the rentals table. Is then the bookings table. And there we have then the rentals. Okay, so now that we have our grid SQL select statement ready, we can then add our grid name and go ahead and click create. So then we have our grid bookings ready, and here the first thing I will do is I will access the events, and here change the OnRecord on header. So let's add the on header first of all. So come here to code snippets again, on header bootstrap. I'll add those, and in the on record I will go ahead and add the field improvements. So here I'm going to change the bookings.confirmed, and well, I'm from bookings.confirmed I'm receiving a variable which is 1, and then I'm going to change booking here. If booking will then display the font awesome icon for the booking field. Okay, so here I will then apply the SC field style, and I already prepared that, so I'm targeting here the field bookings paid. So currently the field is looking like so, and now if I run the grid application, I now have the field or the area nicely styled. Okay, so I want to now add an advanced search to this. So I'm going to close this, and I come here to the refined search and select the fields that I want to apply here. So I want to see the email field, the name field. We can see the confirmed, if it's been paid, the dates, and possibly the amount and property title. So if I click save on those and then come here to edit fields, you'll see that I already have some options here applied. Normally they would be all blank, so I'm going to carry on here and select some options here, whether they will be starting open or closed. And we have a see more option enabled for the email as well as the property title. I'm going to drag the title to the top. I'll leave the email at the top as well. And if I save that, I will now run the grid application, and we have a refined search on the left hand side. Okay, so we still need to add a link to this, so the booking option here actually does something other than just an icon. So if we click on this, it will open another form and view more information for us, and which is then also the booking form. So let's go ahead and start creating then a new application, and select the form application. And now this time I will select the bookings table and select the create button. Okay, so now when I run the form, I have the form looking like so. So we have here the date, when it was booked, the email address, name, telephone number, the rental ID, the confirmation of the booking and that it was paid and how much. And here of course we can navigate through, which is then the default form. So let's come back here to the form fields first of all, and we can adjust how we want these displayed. So I'm going to do that in the edit fields, so I can just drag and drop here, show the fields that I don't want to have displayed, and then we can also make some changes in here, such as we can add a block in here to divide the information maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's come here to layout and then blocks and create a new block. Create. Now I have a new block available in here, and now with this block we can choose to display the labels above for the second block, and then I'm going to come back here to edit fields, and now I have here this new block that I've created, and in there I will place the details and also the rental ID. Now the rental ID is here. The details of the property we don't have here yet, so let's create a new field for that. So a new field, next, and I will call this details, and then click create. Okay, so now that we've created our details field here in events, we'll come here to onload. And here again I have a code snippet, and on bookings we have here an onload event. So here I am making an SQL selection and requesting these specific fields, joining two of the tables and performing a concat on the date ranges. And then here I'm going to echo that and provide that into a specific variable. And here I have an SC field read only macro from Scriptcase, which then targets the amount field. So this field becomes read only. Now if I run this, we will see that here the form will now slightly change. We have the blocks that we've created. We have the details field here, so I still need to change this to a label. And we have here the rental ID. Now here we have the information now also displayed in the header from the property details, which is this here. So we're loading now this information up at the top here. So we're going to load some extra information in this field here. Okay, so now I've pasted this macro in here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this last section here, so I don't actually want to use that. And here I'm going to use the details field, which I had created, which is here. So this other section is actually for the client view. So now when I save, I can now go ahead and adjust this field. And I'm going to change this to a label field. I'll remove here the label. And now if I run, the form here will change. So we have now for the details field, we have here the price, for instance. But now we want to adjust that further. So here on the onload, here we're targeting field number 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so 0. So here we're displaying the date. Now we want to change this, so we are displaying the specific information that we want in this field, which we actually want to display more than that. So I'm going to change that to, we're selecting then 0, we're going to break it, we're then going to select 10, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is here the location name, and then also 11, which is then the date range, and it's booked. So now when I run this again now, we not only have the price displayed there, but we will now have the property details from this rental. Okay, and we can actually display that here within the rental. So let's go ahead and come here to the edit and adjust that. So we created a block there by mistake when we created this new field, and run that again. And now we have our booking form pretty much ready. Of course, we can make further adjustments here. The layout, the buttons, place it wherever we like. For instance, now here with the blocks, we could now come here and adjust these. This last one is not being displayed, so let's delete that. And here we'll then change here to 60% and 40% and beside. So now this block will move here. And there we have that now displayed next to that. Okay, so now I'm going to also change the form settings slightly, and this will also give that an 850 pixel width. And then I can run that now. And now the form is also a little smaller in form with some of the others. Okay, so we can make further changes here with confirmation paid, so we could change those, even the amounts. So let's do that. For confirmed, I'll change that here to, say, a radio field, and again give it an automatic selection. So confirmed, yes, 1, no, 0. And for the paid, I will apply the same. So here again a radio button. Now I'm going to apply a manual lookup, and I will say yes, and give it a value of 1, and no, and give it a value of 0. So when I insert that, I can have 2 columns. In fact, for this one, we can actually just have, so let's remove this, the no, and let's just select the checkbox instead. There's no need for radio buttons here, so now let's have a look. We have our radio buttons and we have a checkbox. So let's make these look a little nicer. So for the checkbox here, I will use a switch, and I will apply the same again for the confirmed. Use a switch, and I'm going to give that 2 columns also, and run that again. And now I will have my confirm and paid a little nicer here also within the form. So I've missed something. Run. The ID. Okay, so now we have a nice switch here for the checkbox and also for the confirm. Now the amount, I think I will add a calculator here and display the currency symbol. So scrolling down here on the amount field, select the currency symbol, and here I will show a calculator, and then click run again. And now within our form we have a calculator here, and our currency is also displayed within the field automatically. Now for the rental, well, that's just displaying the ID, so let's come here into the edit fields, and we are going to change this one here. We're going to tick read only. So now when I run this, the ID is read only, and now our form is nearly ready. We just need to adjust here the buttons and the header. So let's quickly do that. In the header, remove the date, and then for the toolbar, we'll nudge these buttons again over to the right, and then we can run that again. And now we have our form ready. Okay, so now within our grid bookings, we had created an extra field here on the right hand side. This is now going to link to that form, this form bookings we had just created. So if I come here to application links and create a new link, and I'm going to select a field link, and it's going to be the bookings ID, next, and we're going to select the form bookings, next, and now here the ID is the bookings ID. For the var rental ID, we can leave that as no value, and then confirm. We can then select to open in the same window, or in a modal. I think we can say in a modal window, and select save. So now if I run this now, and I click here now on the booking, so I apply it to the correct field. Let's have a quick look. Application links, edit link, next, form bookings, passing the ID, the value, confirm. Okay, so let's delete that and start again. Let's create a new link, and we want a field link. So I selected ID, didn't I? We actually want here the booking. So we're attaching this now to this booking field. So I go next now, again select the bookings field form, pass the ID, I will leave the var rental ID, click confirm, open in the modal window again, click save, and now if I run this, our grid will now have a modal window for this box. Okay, so at the moment this box is actually quite large. We should maybe make it smaller so that it opens nicely within the modal window. So if I come back here to form bookings, again I'll change the settings, and I'll change that to 100%, generate that, and now within my grid, if I refresh this, let's see if now the form looks better. There we go. So now we can actually reduce these fields slightly and have the form fit in into this modal window beautifully. Switch off the header, so let's go ahead and do that. So here in the form bookings, header and footer, let's switch that off. And for the blocks, let's reduce this a little bit. We have 60/40, so we can leave that. But here the fields are quite large, so if I come here to the email field, I have 50 characters, let's change that to 30. For the name, also 30. Telephone field, also 30. And then run that. We'll now see that the form will be a little tidier and smaller, the fields. And now when we run that within our grid here, for the modal window, the form will fit much nicer. Okay, so now I can exit this here, and I can now manage the bookings within our project, our property management platform. Okay, so let me now close these fields. And what we will do is continue in part 3 of this property management platform with Scriptcase. And my name is Jamie Oates. I've been your host during this training session. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again in part 3. Thank you for watching.